Good morning, Mr. Manikoff. My name's Josh and I'll be conducting a health check and a service on your XC60 today. To begin with, round at the near side front of the vehicle. This tyre is measuring at 3.3mm and that's at the lowest point. The tyre is getting a little low, but it's not at the legal limit just yet, which is 1.6mm. I'll pass the size on to the service advisor and he'll be able to follow you up with further information on some new tyres. Coming round into the near side front brakes. Now the outer pad is on 4mm and the discs are beginning to lip. We do, however, come to the inner pad, and I'm going to have to tip the camera upside down just to get in. As you can see, the inner pad is extremely low. We're looking between the 2 and 3mm mark. I would advise that you get these changed immediately, just to prevent, watering the eye, just to prevent obviously running down to the disc and causing any further damage or further expense to yourself. We do, however, coming across to the other side, they are getting low but not as low. Looking at more like a 3 to 4mm on the inner, and we've got 4mm on the outer here. More concerned about the pad on the near side rear, as once that goes down to metal it will kill the disc. Coming onto the suspension components and mounts on the near side front, and they're all intact and operating as you'd expect them to. There's no leaks on the engine or the gearbox, it's both nice and dry, so no further investigation required there. Offside front suspension components and mounts are all intact and operating as you'd expect them to. And coming round onto the offside front tyre, this tyre is measuring at 3.5mm and that's at the lowest point, there's no cuts or gouges to the tyre. Round into the brakes on the offside front, this outer pad is measuring at 4mm. And coming down the centre of the vehicle, the exhaust is nice and secure and there's no leaks down towards the rear axle. Rear axle components such as springs, shock absorbers, bushes and mounts are all intact and operating as they should be, and this applies to both sides on the rear. And coming around onto the near side rear tyre. Near side rear tyre is measured at 5.7mm. There's no cuts or gouges to the tyre itself. Coming around into the brake pads on the near side rear measuring at 4mm, and the discs are getting quite lipped on the rear. Coming across the axle to the offside rear tyre, the offside rear tyre is measuring at 5.6mm at the lowest point, no cuts or gouges in the tyre. And finally coming round onto the brakes on the offside rear, brake pads again measuring at 4mm, discs quite heavily lipped. And that concludes the vehicle health check. There's a couple of things I'd like to run through with you. So the front brake pads are measuring, on the outer pads they are measuring at 4, however on the inner pads on the near side front you are on or lower than 3mm, excuse me, can't get my words out, or you are lower than the 3mm mark. I would advise some new brake pads on the front. There's also the rear brakes are measuring down to 4mm and the discs are lipped. Other than that, I've not really found anything to report on. The front tyres are getting a little bit low, but nothing I'd report just yet. I'll pass all the information on to the service advisor and he'll be in touch. Thank you very much and I hope you have a nice day.